What's up, guys? It's Josh, Nathan, and Will with the Card Guys here, back again to talk to you guys about Outsiders. Um, so, like what we did for the last set, we basically polled our team. We asked them to submit the most influential cards for Assassin, Ranger, Ninja, the hybrid class, the generics, and then to pick a most influential card of the set. We compiled that into a PowerPoint. We don't have everybody here, but we did get their input at the very least, and Will and Nathan and I are more than capable of providing enough discussion, I think. And we should be. I do have some notes from Alex and from Seb on why they picked what they picked. Anyways, before we jump into things too much, I'd just like to thank a few of our sponsors, fabtcg. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out. They're great for deck building things. In fact, I'm making a video very, very soon about how to utilize that. It might actually already be up on the channel by the time you watch this. In addition to that, we also have another sponsor, Dragon Shield. You know them for their card sleeves, deck binders, and lots of other goodies. We also have a website called Card Culture. If you're interested in some nerd threads like this one, that's where to go. Finally, we have a Patreon. Go there, check it out. We have some deck guides. We have a Discord. We have lots of good stuff. Anyways, enough shelling. Let's get to it. So, general thoughts on Outsiders, guys. Do we think that this set is going to be impactful?
100%.
I guess first we have to clarify, for all intents and purposes, this video will be covering the classic constructed format.
Yes, we will have some
not
videos
limited.
on limited later. Yep.
And I have the contrary belief of there are some cards that will definitely see a lot of play that make some heroes a lot better, but like overall, I think that this set will have like a similar effect as like Dynasty, where it just didn't shift a whole lot of things.
Interesting.
I am also of the agreement that this set will impact. This set has provided a lot of tools for the classes that have been suppressed.
Yeah.
Cough Katsu, cough Azalea.
Yeah.
And it's gonna make people want to build decks, just like how people were building Arachne decks week 1, 2, 3, and then it fell off the face of the earth. Whether or not any of these new decks, namely Azuri, Riptide, Katsu, Azalea, will be able to withstand the might of Oldhim and Icelander and Briar, or even more mid-tier decks like, you know, Dromai and Dorinthia and Phi, is to be seen. Okay, anyways, let's just jump into this, and you guys will kind of figure out how we've organized this. So the very first class that I asked everybody to submit their top 2 for was Assassin. So let's just bring that up now. So we got Assassin up first. As you guys can see, we actually have some consensus. Spoiler alert, we won't have consensus in the later picks. But we all chose Shakedown as the most influential / best card for the Assassin set. Nathan, why don't you talk a little bit about why Shakedown is the most influential card?
Yeah, it's just the best card in a vacuum as far as the effect in the ability to flash it in reactions definitely does not hurt. I think people are getting a little too carried away in talks of like pummeling it, but it's still a very good effect that allows you to target certain color cards in your opponent's hand, and there's a lot of strategy behind what color you pick versus certain heroes. You know, if we ever get like a blue illusionist or something like that, you know, it makes taking cards a lot easier. So yeah, other than that, just raw value of the 2 for 6 and being able to delete a card. makes it all-star.
It also can't be understated how valuable getting to look at your opponent's hand is. Decks like Phi and Dorinthia, you can basically map out the Phi's whole turn. You can map out, what's coming with Dorinthia. These are very, very valuable defensive tools on an offensive card. So this is going to be a auto-include 3 of for the whole time she's in Classic Constructed, I think. Nathan, you and I picked Isolate as the second best card here. And I think it's just basically because having Dominate on the attack basically ensures that whatever you swap in has a much higher likelihood of hitting if they don't have a D-React. And that just synergizes with what she's trying to do in CC, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Short and sweet there. Will, you picked the Majestic Assassin weapon as your number 2. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mostly picked it just because I love the idea of Assassin having this whole kit of different weapons that they can bring in and out of different matchups, depending on what they think the other hero is going to be doing to combat their strategy. And it's the kind of thing where, if I'm walking into Kano and he runs all non-attacks, well, then this weapon actually has some play into him. Is Orbital Class actually going to be something that every assassin is bringing in their kit? Is assassin having all these different weapons actually a good thing to take up sideboard slots? That's an answer that I need to come to down the road, but I just like the idea of these options, at least. And Orbital Class is the one that stands out the most to me.
Sure. Yeah, I think this will be an excellent inclusion with Spider's Bite. All the assassin weapons actually have a little bit of play, so it'll be interesting to see how people build their sideboards with assassin. Plus, all those the assassin ninja theme this set is focused around daggers and getting value out of them. So we could see some sideboard packages with those included. Okay, so Seb, who is not here, picked Spike with Inertia as his card, and he liked this card because the Inertia token basically forces you to change how you play the game. The Inertia token is very similar to the Seek and Destroy effect. It says that you can't gotta use everything you have. You can't take anything to the next turn. You can't arsenal.
You can't hold them.
Yep, you gotta. It not being able to arsenal does affect a lot of heroes, quite impactfully, such as Oldhim, Icelander, even decks that are combo focused like Kano, Bolton. These are all great. There are a lot of mid-range decks that try to set up things, set up bigger turns like Briar, Dorinthia. These are all the whole Inertia token is actually very, very valuable there. In addition to that, that also opens up a window where you can come in with a dominated attack and you know that it's much more likely to hit, right? And that's why he picked that card. Alex picked Infiltrate as his card. Let me pull up his reasoning for why he picked that.
That one was on the bubble for me just because of the cool factor. It's pretty nifty. I like the idea of stealing an enemy's attack and using it against them.
Yeah. Alex said that Infiltrate is kind of similar to Take the Tempo, but for Assassin instead of Ninja. This is essentially a draw card effect. This is a card that I think you're going to have to pair this with the attack reaction, or your opponent is definitely going to block this out. Are you high on this card, Nathan? Infiltrate?
I'm very low on that card. Like, I mean, like it for me, I can't think of like if I'm playing against a non-aggro deck, right? Like if I hit a choke slam, what am I gonna do with a choke slam, right? Like, does that even fit into what I'm trying to do? I mean, I can't Razor's Edge a choke slam, so like it goes against the whole concept of what my deck's trying to do. And then I hit a CMH off the top. Like that's fantastic, but I don't have any Earth cards. Like it's just,
yeah,
like
it's a very expensive nimblism.
If this is could this possibly be for Arachne more?
I think that makes more sense because he gets to look, but the problem is
Ooh,
He
and if he
does. He does
banishes
not.
with
He
a
does not get to look.
contract,
This is not a contract.
exactly. That's what I was about to say. It's not a contract card, so he doesn't have to look. So it would have to be like the second thing he plays
if
to
he
be able to.
razors a contract, the contract banish carries over, so he can get a silver and an extra card off of infiltrate. That's kind of cool. I don't know if it's going to come up, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're a god if you hit the E strike, right? But other than that, it's just
Yeah.
terrible. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see what you mean.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also quite mid on infiltrate, other than the art.
And
I
the
guess-
cosplay.
And the cosplay, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Carolina killed it.
Yeah, she did. So I think we're in a fair agreement that Shakedown is the best card, and the rest of the the assassin cards are not
They're
bad.
debatable.
They're
Yeah.
role players. They
Yeah.
have their role.
They're cool.
Overall, do we think assassin will be impactful in this set? Either Arachne or Uzuri.
Nope.
And
Yet to be seen,
the
but I don't
reasoning
think
being
so.
The reasoning is assassin got the old fashioned Katsu treatment, where
split
they
into
got
too many things.
they got horizontal progression, not vertical progression.
That's called warrior, not
yeah,
not
yeah,
Katsu.
or yeah. Either way, I guess I have to clarify. It has to be outsider Katsu, whereas Katsu always got new cards, but they all like just didn't involve each other, and like they were not strict upgrades. They just like did random other things, and that's all this is. It's like a whole different play style, but you can't really mesh, right? Because if you're playing a bunch of stealth cards, then like your Arachne hero is blank.
Yeah.
And
I tried to build an Azuri deck earlier today, and the only contract cards I wanted were the Majestics, Leave No Witnesses,
right,
and
literally.
Eradicate, and Surgical Extraction. And then I was like, well, I don't want any of the other ones. And then same way, in the other way, it's like, why
Vice
do I want
versa,
stealth
yeah.
cards in my CC Arachne deck? Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Really
yeah, I
interesting.
think overall we are pretty meh on Assassin going forward. They are pretty cool though. It's always nice to have an extra class. We now have what, 10 classes in the
I
game.
welcome
It's
someone
cool.
breaking it and showing
Yep.
me how it's great.
Yep. All right. Okay, so let's move on. The second question that I asked you guys to answer was
real quick before we go, I did one stream of Axis Dory, and LSS had to print Scale Peeler. They had to shut it down. They said it was too strong.
That's the one that
that does hurt
destroys
shoes,
the-
doesn't it?
the-
Yeah.
It's the -1 on equipment.
yep.
Dang.
They got me. But go ahead.
Of note, like flavor wise, Assassin will probably be able to construct the most anti-meta deck, or one of the
Right.
best anti-meta decks if they want to take that to a tournament. All right. The second class was, let's see here,
Ranger?
was Ninja.
Mm.
All right. So Ninja. All right, we have
Ninja's
a
Jack.
lot of disagreement here, as you can see. There is 5 cards chosen by 5
Hey,
of
what's
us.
up, Nathan?
Yeah.
All right, so the 2 cards that got the most points, I guess, Visit the Floating Dojo and Dishonor both have 4. Bonds of Ancestry has 3, and Cyclone and Head have 2. So Nathan, you picked Visit the Floating Dojo as the most influential / best ninja card. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so everybody looking, you basically notice that Will and I are the same cards, just different order.
Mhm.
As far as power level only, Will is actually correct. The reason I picked Dojo is over Bonds was look at that art. Take a second.
It's great.
That's
That
gonna be
is-
a playmat one day.
That is the best looking art of the set. Not even a question. It is just so good. But back to the question. So why is Dojo on my list of top 2 cards for Ninja? The answer to that question is it is an easy way to beat fatigue. And you might say, okay, how is that possible? So it's not the fact that it's putting cards in, it's what cards it puts in. You put a Surging and then either a Lord of Wind, Mugenshi, or Whelming, whatever you need more of at the time. You do not put it to the top of the deck. You put it to the bottom. You basically keep it in arsenal for whenever you pitch a Whelming. And then you put like a Surging and a Mugenshi. After you pitch the Whelming, you play that card from arsenal because it's an instant. And then you put those cards with them. And then you no longer, Lord of Wind doesn't say if it hits, shuffle half your graveyard into your deck. It says pay additional resources and do so. So as long as you pitch it together, you have infinite amount of Surging, Whelmings, Mugenshi, and Lord of Winds.
Okay,
It's aggressive remembrance.
I agree that Ninja has basically become unfatigable. However, that is contingent on two things. One, you basically have to never shuffle your deck anymore, which means you're playing Dishonored Ketsu at that point. In addition to that, this is a whole card. This is not a freebie. This is a card to set up for later. This is at best a sideboard card, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's 100% a sideboard card and never main decked. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay.
100%.
That's fine. I think we can agree on that.
If it blocked 3, it'd be main deck every day.
Yes, this would be
absolutely
nuts.
Oh, it'd be so good.
It'd be so good.
The fact that it is an instant might actually be a slight upside, kind of how like Ironsong Pride is slightly better being an instant than being a attack reaction, because you can close the combat chain, put those things in the graveyard, and then use this as an instant right before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
you draw in your opener. That'd be cool.
Drawing it in your opener it basically means you're gonna pitch it for Gadachis, right?
There's also cheeky play where on the trigger of a Whelming Gustwave draw or a Mask of Momentum draw, you can respond with Dojo and put the missing piece that you need onto the top once you have cleared that it's gonna trigger.
Yep. Same with Ancestral Empowerment.
Yep. Yeah, and you can just go snatch it up real quick.
Yeah, this card has
Josh, if you I was thinking if you draw it in the opener with Surging plus like a Gust Wave, that way you can block with those and put them right on top. But
you can, yeah.
That's a pipe dream, but yeah.
I mean, hey.
Okay, I guess let's talk about Bonds of Ancestry before we talk about Dishonor. Bonds of Ancestry is pretty related to Dojo. It's also related to the new combo line.
Oh, Bonds. I love this card. I love it. If you go Gust Wave into this, you just get to do fun things with Katsu now. This card is so cool. It blocks for 3. Like, yeah, the 2, if it's not turned on, it's one of the worst cards in the deck, but there's just so many Gust Waves now that you're actually playing, and this thing lets you do gross fun things. I'm a big fan of this card.
It's basically a 0 for 8.
Yep.
That's why it's easily the best card of the set for Ninja, because it doesn't have to hit. It just says when it attacks, go get your thingy-mabob and you're good to go.
Yep.
So there's nothing conditional on it. The only condition is you have to have what you are looking for already in the graveyard, which is fine because you can play off of the color. So if, let's say, you wanted to go get a Whelming for whatever reason, you could banish a blue one and go get a red one. So you don't even have to like coordinate in any manner for the color. You just have to have something of that name in there, which most of the stuff that you're going to be getting should be easy to grab.
This also leads pretty nicely into Dishonor. In fact, this is the Bonds of Ancestry is Mugenshi and Dishonor is Lord of Wind.
That's right.
In the traditional sense. Surging Strike is obviously the starter, and Descendant Gust Wave is the pairing for Whelming Gust Wave. let's talk a little bit about Dishonor. Dishonor, I think, is a pretty important card. This is very. I'm going to talk a lot about the implications of this card existing when I talk about Cyclone Roundhouse, which I think is secretly or not secretly one of the best cards in the whole set. Dishonor, the fact that this card exists already changes how you have to play against Ketsu. Now, you could just, you know, stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and pretend that if he has it, he has it, whatever, make him have it, right? But Ketsu, of all classes, is most likely to have it when if you look at him and say, do you have it? Dishonor obviously has a varying degree of impact on the heroes. Obviously, heroes like Leviah, Kano, Icelander, Bolton, Dory, like these are majorly impacted, whereas heroes like Dash will laugh at you and say, and now what, right? A lot of the heroes are cut somewhere in the middle, like Reinhardt would be annoyed, Bravo might be annoyed, but they could still handle things. But just the fact that this exists changes how you have to defend. Now, if you look, this card can be, especially when they present Breeze Rider boots, this is going to get into one of those, do you know how to defend perfectly situations, like against Dorinthia. If you make a mistake, you're going to get screwed by Cyclone Roundhouse and by Dishonor. You basically have to block these perfectly. So let me talk a little bit about Cyclone Roundhouse, why I think this is such a good card here, okay? First of all, Cyclone Roundhouse can come up in several different ways, right? In the past, it was surging. The WTR Ketsu was very face up on what they did. Surging Strike, Whelming, Mugenshi, Lord of Wind, right? You let Surging hit. You block Whelming Gust Wave. You probably block Mugenshi release, right? So they can't tutor for Lord of Wind. That was straightforward on what to do here. Cyclone Roundhouse can come out in different ways, right? The first way it can come out, Twin Twisters into Spinning Wheel Kick into Cyclone Roundhouse. That's one way it could come out. The other one is Spinning Wheel Kick into Cyclone Roundhouse. The other way that this could come out, Be Like Water into... Okay, basically there's many ways. In addition to that, it could have been Surging Strike, Tutor for Spinning Wheel Kick into Cyclone Roundhouse. This card is going to surprise a lot of people. If you block with your armor on a combo starter and they get it to hit, or maybe they come in with a second attack and that hits, and then they go Spinning Wheel Kick, Cyclone Roundhouse, you're in a lot of trouble because goodbye to your armor. Now, this card in the hands of a talented Ketsu player is gonna win games by itself. In addition to Dishonor. In addition to the fact that Breeze Rider boots can create weird combo shortcuts that you didn't even see coming. In addition to the fact that you could tutor for these pieces. It's just ridiculous. And Cyclone Roundhouse is basically unblockable because you have to block 8 on this for it to stop the draw. If there's a masculine momentum trigger, right? And with Breeze Rider boots, this has go again, right? It's actually kind of ridiculous, I think.
It's actually a good point. I thought about Cyclone for mine, but the reason you just mentioned the masculine momentum trigger, that's actually why Cyclone is not my number 1 or number 2 card, is because if you look at the resource curve, at a minimum to actually get the effect that you're, guaranteeing the mass trigger, you got to spend 1 on the Spinning Wheel Kick and 2 on the Cyclone Roundhouse.
It's a whole blue.
So you have to have a 0 cost go again. And you can't Kadachi, there's no play for resources in any other way, which makes it a lot more difficult to manufacture that situation unless you keep a card that's going to be naturally inefficient in that manner.
My counterpoint to that would be remember how I said you can go Surging Strike into Tutor Spinning Wheel Kick into Cyclone Roundhouse. That uses 5 resources. Or you can go Kadachi into Surging Strike into Tutor Spinning Wheel Kick.
But if you did that,
there.
if you did that, then you spent 2 cards to deal 5 damage for the surging, which is like not.
Well, you're doing 6 with the Kadachi, but the main thing is that
Sure,
this effect doesn't even have to trigger. This card is very good against the thinking, careful players. You have to be super careful now when you block with your armor against Ninja, because if they ever get to tutor into, because this doesn't say on hit, just like Pulse Wave Harpoon does not say on hit. They just have to play this and goodbye to your armor.
Yeah.
I think this is a key card for beating Oldhim, and this is also excellent against other decks that rely heavily on their armor, like Warrior, or even like decks like Reinhardt. If they block with Scab Skids, they could lose that, right?
I've blocked a lot of Kadachis with Footsteps on Prism in my day.
Yeah, that is true.
But of the meta heroes, other than Rampart, what is like a big drastic hit if it gets deleted?
The gloves. Usually you kill a lot of ninjas by making a Ruin Chant off of blue. Grasp.
Killing Grasp is meh. It's
I
alright.
Happy about it, but yeah, I feel you.
I think just the fact, like I said, it doesn't even have to hit. You can Dishonor and Cyclone Roundhouse actually are 2 cards, like I said, that they just have to be in the game, kind of like Shatter for Warrior.
Yeah,
like, if it was actually a good Shatter. Shatter is a pretty bad card, but just the fact that these exist means it's going to be much harder to defend against them without taking risks.
They make people more honest. Yeah. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Ketsu has a really like, having a tutor ability on his hero ability is kind of nuts now that the combo lines have gotten so complicated. And you look at like WTR combos. Combo starters did not have combo on them, but now they do. Spinning Wheel Kick is a combo starter with combo. And similarly, 100 Wins, the one that came before 100 Wins. That one also was a combo starter that had combo. So that combo starters that have combo become infinitely more powerful, in my opinion, because you can combo shortcut multiple times during the game. I also think, with Breeze Rider boots, we're going to see some kind of nutty offense from Ketsu.
I love that Descendant Gust Wave has natural go again. That's so good.
All right, Alex was the odd man out and chose Head Leads Tails. Said it's another Crouching Tiger card, and can make Crouching Tiger into a real threat. I agree. But
I agree.
I mean, generally, I think people have learned how to defend against Meow Meow's Ketsu. So it's not that great.
With bonds, like, why would you ever consider Kitty Cat Katsu? Like, I don't.
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
I don't like.
Bonds is so good.
Combo Katsu is way better now than Crouching Tiger. Like, it's not even close.
Okay,
but it's a cool card. I like it.
Yep. I feel like this is a card more for limited, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see
than
that.
for constructed. I mean, this is a head gem that costs 1.
And it doesn't even block 3.
Yeah. Okay. I think we had a very good discussion. Do we think that Ninja will get there in this next set?
Katsu's going to be one to look out for.
He's at least 1.5, and if somebody gets the right ratios, the right strategies, he could be a tier 1 deck.
Yep. Yeah, I think Ketsu is in a pretty decent spot right now. I also think this is a deck that is going to punish bad players. If you do not know how to block, you are going to get run around by Katsu.
Yeah, for real.
But it still has to do the test of time with, is it the best aggro deck?
Yeah.
Because if it's not that, then who cares about the deck, basically?
Yeah.
So it's got to conquer that hill first, and if it does, if there's at least a contention on whether it is the best aggro deck, well, then now you can say, okay,
Sure.
pick this because of certain matchups or whatever.
Sounds good.
All right, let's move on to Ranger. Ranger's next here. All right, Ranger, we have a few kind of standout cards and a few secondary cards here. Barbed Undertow has 6. Quiver of Abyssal Depths has 4. Infecting Shot has 2. Crow's Nest, Lace with Inertia, and Spire Sniping all have 1 point. Barbed Undertow, Nathan, Alex, and I agreed on that one. This is a pretty nutty card.
It's so good. It's so good.
I mean, when you talk about on-hit effects for Ranger, like, this is in that S tier now of on-hits. This basically says you don't have a turn for a lot of decks. I mean, saying that you can't, like, this card might actually change how people build their decks. That's how influential this card is. You might actually build your deck with more yellows and blues than just blues and reds, right? If Barbed Undertow starts becoming a big problem. The decks that are going to use this most likely is going to be Azalea, because you need an aim counter for it to have the on-hit effect. If it doesn't have an on-hit effect, it's pretty bad, right? So we're talking about Sandscour Bow or the Crow's Nest. Riptide might use it, but he has less ability to make sure it hits, whereas Azalea can give it dominate without too much issue. Any thoughts on this, Nathan?
I mean, it's just an unreal on-hit effect. I mean, to stop people from pitching for, like, you choose red against Stromai, they can't make any ash. You choose yellow if it's another yellow illusionist. Like, I know Prism's LL, but like, no go again. You know, like, there's just so many, like,
Choose blue against the Guardian.
Yeah, like, there's just, choose blue against anybody.
Everybody.
Yeah, that too.
those are designed to be resource cards, and you're like, oh yeah, you have to attack me with that blue T-bone now. Like, it's just it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
All right. Will, you and Seb chose the Quiver of Abyssal Depths.
It's a remembrance that starts on the board. The quivers are just an upgrade across the board for Rangers. I love it. There's no opportunity cost, and this is just remembrance that you get to start the game with. I think it's so cool. I like it.
This does cost a card to play, though. It costs a blue to play this. Therefore, is it like, it's remembrance that you're guaranteed to not draw when you don't want to draw it. I guess that is kind of the upside, right?
Right.
Absolutely. My thought is, on a 3 of a kind turn, you usually have like a blue or 2 left over. So if you're not dumping into shock charmers, then that blue can just go into quiver. If you've had a 3 of a kind turn, you've probably used 3 arrows, stuff like that.
Yep, that's a great point. I think it's not too bad. This is probably so from a game design perspective, this is a card that they probably printed at L for limited reasons. This effect doesn't really feel like a legendary to me. This feels like
I can agree with that.
They didn't want people to have this all the time in limited.
Crow's Nest is way better, and it's the token.
yes.
So that's my number 2.
All right. Nathan, you and Alex chose Infecting Shot. I'll read off what Alex said. He said that Infecting Shot uses what I consider to be the best token, Blood Rot, and creates a 1 for 8 essentially, or strips 2 cards if they want to block. 1 for
One
Yeah, I
for
guess.
7, but
Well, if it has the aim counter, it'd be 1 for 8.
yeah, great point, great point.
That is an easily dominatable wounded bull.
Yeah, great point.
That's how you break. You one for crow's nest, one to load it with the bow,
One to give
and
it.
one to fire.
Yep.
Yeah, crow's nest gives it the aim counter. You pay the cost, and then you load it with the bow. That is a 3 for 8 that you can dominate for like free.
I
So it's
like it.
just super good value.
I will say though, I feel like these arrows are arrows like this that have to hit. Like most of them have to hit, right? But
Yeah.
we're more likely to see very, very, very early armor blocks with the boulder trap. Like I know as warrior right now, my fridge is going in front of the first 2 things that ranger sends it.
Right.
Because I don't want to get it busted up by the boulder traps.
Right.
So this is kind of an arrow that is like more mid-gamey. And since it's a common, you could have 6 if you wanted. You could have the blues and the reds. So it's decently. There's a decent chance it'll hit mid-game, but early game I don't think this will hit.
Well, if they're giving armor on an infecting shot, so a barbed undertow can hit, I'm cool with that.
Sure.
Yeah, for real.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Of note, now with this arrow, we actually are almost into the territory where there's too many good arrows now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, what do we do now? We have to actually make some hard choices here. All right. Will, Seb, and I all had different choices for the second place card. Will, why don't you tell us about Crow's Nest?
For me, the crow's nest is just the easy, convenient way to get the aim counters. Like everything else, it was too difficult in my opinion. And crow's nest
Yep.
is easy peasy lemon squeezy.
It's exactly what Azalea needed.
Yeah. And this is the iconic quiver from all the art. So this is nice to see in
Oh, perfect. I didn't even put that together.
All right. Seb chose Lace with Inertia as his choice. Again, going with the
Inertia's
theme
good.
that he likes the whole Inertia token, because that changes fundamentally how people have to play the game. Not many cards can fundamentally change how people have to play. I mean, Frostbite obviously is one of those tokens, and Inertia he thinks is also going to be one of those tokens. As for me, I picked Spire Sniping as my number 2 card here, and there is a particular reason for this. And Nathan, you kind of talked about this a little bit before the show, how getting to look at a lot of cards means you don't have to run as many arrows, right? Spire, there's no way to opt to. This isn't exactly opt. Yes, I know that, but there's no way to look at 2 cards that easily as Azalea. You can look at one with the crossbone. There are several things like read the glide path that will opt 1. There's an arrow that will opt 1, but Spire Sniping is look at 2. And 2 and 1 is a massive difference here, and this is the only card that has this type of effect. So I think Spire Sniping actually could be run as a 9 of if you're running a very dominated focused build. Spire Sniping is actually what you want to load into your arsenal, because it'll get switched with something on the top 2 of the deck. Plus, you could just fire it 1 for 5. It's not that bad. Plus, you don't have to put an aim counter on it if you don't want to, because you can't even put an aim counter on it, right? So it works a little bit better with the resources. So I think
you could.
Yeah, so I like literally looked through all the ranger cards. I'm like, have we seen anything that lets us opt too easily? There's some non-attack actions that let you do that, but
so how are you putting it into Arsenal is the question.
With the bow, I presume.
Right. So if you use the bow, put it
alternatively, you can put it face down at the end of turn and use the crossbone
Double and
to
cross route.
then you actually get
To
to
flip it up.
or you get to order it. You get to opt,
Right.
and then you can either do look at the top two, put them back, or you can opt. I guess you would opt first in this case.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because typically you want to opt to find the arrow, but if you have this, you have the arrow. So that's the only like conflicting. But I mean, looking at cards is strong in the Azalea. That's not to be understated. I just wish it was on a non-attack instead of an arrow.
There's some non-attacks that do that.
Yeah.
There are non-attacks that do that, and they don't see
Yeah.
play. The reason I think this sees play is because
You
let's
could
say
do
you
it and have a
don't let's say
backup
you
plan.
don't find the top two there. Well,
I
we're
got
just
an
gonna
arrow.
shoot this.
Yeah,
And this is a common. This can be run as a 9 of,
Mhm.
which means about half of your hands you'll have one of these.
I like it.
So I think this effect is pretty good. Like I think this is kind of like Bolton Shot or Mauve Skies. Like this is a
Right.
card that might see rainbow play in particular decks. Okay, let's move on now. We haven't mentioned Riptide at all during our whole evaluation here.
There's a reason.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, he's bad.
He might not be great.
He's so bad he killed my stream.
Yeah.
Uh,
Again, I like we said at the beginning,
yeah.
people are going to be excited to build with him, but I think this set is kind of a bit more tailored for Azalea. Azalea got a lot of tools. Azalea
Good.
probably 1.5 at least, kind of like Ketsu.
Don't count Lexi out. She's
Lexi's good.
she's still there. And she got some upgrades, but
Good indeed.
Riptide is there's like those two, and then like Riptide is like off doing laundry somewhere or something because they're not playing the same game.
Yep.
That's for sure.
I think all these lace cards will be decent in a non-elemental focused Lexi deck because you can send an arrow and then that has an on-hit effect. They're going to block that, and then you lace and then send your second arrow, and it's more likely to hit. I think all the laces are pretty good here. All right. Let's move on here to the hybrid cards. So in the set, there are hybrid Assassin Ranger and Assassin Ninja cards. As you can see, a wide spread of choices here. This one is not quite in order. There was a last minute change, but Seb and Alex picked Toxicity as their #1 card. I think this is kind of the low-hanging fruit when you look at all the dual class cards. This is it's a 0 for 5. Let's see what Alex wrote here. He said that Toxicity feels really strong, gets around damage prevention, and easy to hit with all the attack reactions, and 0 for 5 is above rate. All true.
Just has to hit.
It has to hit.
Yeah.
And I think if your opponent sees you playing Toxicity, especially if it's not red, they're gonna hold their D-reacts for when you play this. So whether or not this is a good card to be seen.
Yeah.
The rate obviously is good, but we'll see if it's enough. Will, you and I chose Concealed Blade.
Yep.
So why don't you talk to me a little bit about Concealed Blade?
I mostly chose it for the potential, actually. I don't think it's doing anything game breaking yet. I just like the idea of it's the first time we've seen a way to get a weapon into combat. Like assassins now have the option to run Talishar and then whip out a dagger with Concealed Blade after Talishar breaks. Like that's pretty nifty to me. Aside from that, though, I don't have
think
any
about that.
concrete reasons.
I didn't even think about that. I was thinking like I'm gonna go Zephyr Needle and poke people and it breaks, and then poke people and then it breaks.
That too.
Yeah, I would run a Kadachi and then a Zephyr Needle against like 5 just people that really do not want to block, and then you just get the extra points of value until they do block, and then you're like, oh, go back and get it. And start poking them again.
Of note, it has to be from your inventory, which is your sideboard, not your graveyard. But yes,
And you cannot manipulate the fact that you can only hold 2 weapons. So you can't have like Kadachi, and then go grab a Zephyr Needle. You can't, unfortunately. You can't like hold 3 weapons. That'd be cool though.
That's a cool card. Very cool.
I think this just has a lot of good stats. 0 for 3, or 0, 3 block. These are things that you want. This is also another form of ancestral empowerment. This could create Mask of Momentum triggers. And I think it combines very, very, very nicely with Flick Knives, which I think, like I talked about when we talked about Ninja, Flick Knives plus Concealed Blade plus all those other tools is going to create a defensive nightmare for them. Let's talk about Flick Knives now. So Flick Knives is a arm equipment. So this is basically competing with Shuko and Breaking Scales. So 0 cost attack reaction, target dagger you control that isn't on the active chain link. So that means it can be on the combat chain, but it is not the link, right? Deals 1 damage to target hero. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger is hit, destroy the dagger. So let's talk about the applications in the assassins first. This can cause your daggers to hit. Obviously, that will reduce the chance that they can block a future attack. Also works, I think, with against certain defense reactions, but I have to read carefully about that. This is not Flick Knives is not really for assassins in my opinion, but I think it's decent in them. This is mainly for Ninja here, because with Concealed Blade you can get it back if you need to, but this is a way to push extra damage at the very, very end of the game. You can't drop to 1 anymore against Ninja. Also,
could you ever drop to 1?
Well, now you're really dead. Oh, now you can't drop to 2. Now you can't drop to 2. Right? And so it can trigger Master Momentum. This also allows you to I mean, there's just so many ways that this card can be abused. I just think that this card in combination with all the other Ninja cards is a little bit ridiculous. Like I think it's going to be pretty easy to get Mask Momentum triggers now. There's so many break points. There's so many like ways that you can
say
determine how you want the attack the combat chain to go.
Say attack card number 2 is about to hit. Can you Flick Knives during reactions to make it number 3?
Yep.
That's pretty sweet. I like that.
The only problem I have with that card is it's in the arm slot and you're competing with Breaking Scale. Breaking Scales has Battle Worn. It not only can give you a Mask of Momentum trigger, but it can give you overblock value against bad opponents for the whole game. And
that's a great point.
If that was in the feet spot, it would be the best card in the set. But nobody's flicking knives with their feet. So I understand why they had to put it in the arm slot. It's just super unfortunate because now it has to compete. It's just like, the whole Mask of the Pouncing Links and Mask of Momentum, just them competing with each other. God, if that was in even the chest slot, like it would be so good. But I just couldn't manufacture a situation where I would put it over, unless you were going like completely like non-combo. I just got to give it to Breaking Scales. It's just so good. So good.
Sure. Okay. You guys put Codex of Blood Rot pretty highly. You guys all like it, but you don't love it. Tell me about Codex of Blood Rot.
It's basically just 2 free value. That's how I read it. Each hero puts a card from their hand face down in their arsenal. Don't really care about that part. It has some application to Ranger. It's really good in Riptide. Or Riptide already has that ability built in, but like it's good for mainly like Ranger as far as that effect goes. But it creates a ponder token which theoretically replaces itself. You do have to factor in the variable cost of an unknown card that you may or may not want to arsenal. so you can't give it a full card's value, but it's almost a replacement. But then they get a Blood Rot Pox, which
Is
on my
basically 2
stream,
damage.
you always value Blood Rot Pox at 2 damage, whether they pitch for it or it deals 2 damage, because the other player is going to determine which value is higher and they're going to pick the lower. So that's automatically a value of 2. So it's just literally you're trading 2 value for an unknown card variable value, which I think is extremely positive. And it's a yellow, which in Ranger is usually enough for your resource card.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Seb put Stabboon as his number 2 here. I'm a little confused why he picked this, but I guess the reasoning could be that this is a 0 for 4, and this is, I mean, it's a 0 cost blue block 3, which is good in Ninja. But is there a way that you can get this to be? I mean, this has to hit. Hold on, this is not a 0 for 4.
Yeah, it's a 0 for 2 with an on hit.
With an on hit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see it, but hey.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't even get buffed. That's right. Oh,
yeah, this is I mean, the only way that I can like manufacture like that it's good, it's like it's better in Assassin because it decreases the block value, but
is it a Benji card?
It has to be a Benji card. Like literally has to be, because
I mean, this is a Benji card. You're right.
Even if you spider bite somebody, it's just gonna knock the 3 block down to a 2 block. That's good enough.
Let's move on to Death Touch then. That was a contender of mine. This card's good.
Yeah, tunic counter for 8.
Mm-hmm.
Easy clap. That's literally how you look at that card.
So you have to play this from Arsenal, basically.
Who cares? I'll block with everything in Arsenal it. And then next turn I will tunic counter for 8. 6 with an on hit effect that at worst is a blood pox, which we previously defined as a value of at least 2. And that's just value. Like
very rarely can tunic get you this much tempo.
Yeah, that's just massive. 8 value off the tunic counter is just insane.
Incredible.
Something that we've seen from the Assassin stealth cards plus all these 6 power cards with on hit effects is the return of having your deck block for 3 is important.
Yes.
Your deck blocks for 2, you're gonna be sad.
Yep.
Okay. Good discussion here. Okay, so let's move on to the generic cards next. All right, for the generic cards, lots of choices here. We have Premeditate, Give and Take, Peace of Mind, Burdens of the Past, Cut Down to Size, Remembrance of Determination, and Amnesia. The card with the highest score is Premeditate. This is basically Majestic Plunder Run, right?
It's Ponder Run, baby. And I love it.
It is more fair in the fact that it is A, a Majestic, so you can't run 9 of them. B, the next time it hits, it makes a Ponder token, not draw a card. And there's no C. It's just more fair. Did LSS learn their lesson?
You can't just set it in Arsenal and be like, I'm having an amazing turn. It needs to be in your hand. But aside from that, unless you're a Ranger, in which case it doesn't need to be.
No, this card can be played from hand.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm saying
the attack
you need to have an Arsenal to get the +3, but it's still kind of good even without that, I guess.
So if you everybody when they're opening their packs on pre-release, if you pull this card, get you a quarter and start scratching at the generic part, and it'll actually start saying Ranger if you scratch long enough. Because that's the only person who's going to play this. Actually, don't scratch your card. I'm just kidding. But it says generic on the card, but it's a Ranger card. Nobody else is going to play that card. It's just a card that replaces itself, and Ranger has the unique ability to just shift cards out of an arsenal if they're bad. So you can give the Ponder token the equivalent value of a snatch on hit, basically, because they can just replace that card with something else. So yeah, it's basically a ranger card, but it says generic.
I can see some other classes running this, but I agree with you. It shines the best in Ranger.
Okay. Will, you and I liked Give and Take. I think this is a pretty nifty card. It says when it's been defended by an action card, you may put an action card with cost less than power of Give and Take on top of your deck. It is not an on-hit effect. It just happens. It is a 1 cost 3 go again that blocks for 3. Very few cards with go again have 3 block. Attack action cards with go again have 3 block. Very, very, very few. In fact, I can't even think of one off the top of my head.
Some of the
Easter
new
egg.
combo cards from Katsu.
Just
I
Easter
think
egg.
they might block 2, actually. Yeah, just Easter egg.
So, I mean, just the fact that this has those stats, I think is kind of ridiculous.
I love it. I think this card's really cool. I wish it came in for more than 3 because I feel like most people are just going to be like, oh, no blocks. But it's got some cool loot potential if you are playing into fatigue. Like if for some reason you can have nothing but give and takes left at the bottom and they're at 3 and they have to block it and you just put another one on top. Like that's so cool to me. But I wish it did more than 3. Or I wish it were 0 cost.
I
like this card a lot.
I like this card a lot as well. Sorry, this is not on hit. This is on defend. So it's
Undefended.
a little bit less good. If this was just it happened, card would be nuts, right? Your opponent does have some agency here. They could just choose to take 3. But still, I think it's quite decent. Okay. Nathan, you have a hipster choice for the card here. Peace of Mind. A 2-cost generic instant that says the next time you'd be dealt combat damage this turn, prevent 4, create a ponder token. So you like 2 cards blocking for 2 each, huh? But then you make a ponder token.
So this card has the highest potential to be the first card banned in this set. You heard it here first. Let me explain. In what? When's the ban and restrict announcement coming out? In like a week, 2 weeks?
20th.
20th. In 10 days. Either this card has to go or Crown of Seeds has to go. They both cannot coexist. Let me explain why. If Oldham pitches a blue, crowns, right? That is a 1 resource for 1 damage prevention, gets a filter, it's fair, right? Then he gets to play this, which blocks 4. So if we tally up, so far Oldham has paid 3 resources to block 5 damage, but then gets the ponder token, which with Crown of Seeds removes the random variable, factor of the value because you can just crown away the next turn. So you get a refund on at least 3 of that block. So you literally get it's a yellow sigil for free. If you do the math, it is gain 2 life for no cost.
This card cannot carry over prevention like Crown of Seeds can, though. If you take 1 damage, Peace of Mind's effect will lose. It'll eat it all.
Well,
you don't float 4 the whole turn.
Well, yeah, you have to use it at like good times. You can't like use it on a Kadachi. You let the crown absorb the Kadachi, and then when they play the whelming or the surging or whatever, you play that. But it's just the fact that it's 2 free block for no cost.
Yeah,
absolute 0 cost, and that is why on the 20th, either this card has to go or Crown has to go. Because if you take Crown out of the equation, well, now you just got some rinky-dink card coming off the top, and it may not need to go in your arsenal. And then you are inadvertently paying a cost because somebody could like Ram's Head and then block Peace of Mind, right? And that's still not that great because of the unknown factor. But with Crown, it removes the unknown factor, and you can draw that Tome of Harvest and put it in Arsenal and still crown it away. So my money, if they stick to the can't ban a legendary because of memories and pastimes, this will be the first card banned in the set.
We'll see. I'm very curious to find out.
Yep. Time will tell, I guess. All right. Seb chose Burdens of the Past, which, spoiler alert, was our preview card. If you haven't watched Ed gaining 69 life, go watch that. I think Seb chose this card mainly for the stat line. It is a generic blue block 3 that costs 0. I think that's mainly why he chose it. This card, I think, sees sideboard play in a few decks, but is it going to be the most impactful card? I doubt it, but we'll see.
We will see.
Alex chose cut down to size. His reasoning for that was that it forces your opponent to play on less than 4 cards. And it's a 6 power attack, which, you know, is a thing, right?
It says, give me a card.
Yeah,
I like it.
It does say, give me a card.
If it was 2 for 7, I'd love it.
Well, yeah. If it were 2 for 7, I'd be
There,
playing the heck
how
out of
many 2 for 7s exist in the game?
Or even if it was
Zero.
a 3 for 7, it's still better. It's like, what are you doing with that extra resource? And because like the way I picture it in my head is like, imagine somebody CNCs you, but like the text on CNC says it has to deal 6 damage. Because you just block 1 card and now you don't have 4 cards. So you take 3 and go about your day.
But you know,
just give me your worst card. Like
CNC,
You
if they
play
don't have an
this rounds
arsenal,
on
they just say
me.
no blocks, you know.
You play this rounds on me, and then they have 5 cards. I don't know.
They just block 2.
Yeah,
I guess
good
it's terrible.
point.
I'm not quite seeing this one either.
Yep.
Okay, Vambrance of Determination. This is a sideboard card, I think. This card, I'm not sure how good this is against Oldhim. On paper, this is decent against Oldhim.
I need to wait and see. If this is good into Oldhim, then I love it. But until I see it, I'm not sold.
The
It's
problem is you
Ironhide
have to
1.
It
pay.
costs 1,
Like-
which is
Like let's say it just had 1 block blade break. I still don't think it's that good. It's just a better iron rod at that point. And because how many decks have an extra resource just hanging out for the event of a prevention effect taking place? Right? Like you're always like, for Katsu, you're trying to Kadachi, and then like do other stuff, not just play a bunch of zeros, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you don't just have that. I guess you could theoretically sit on tunic counter, but like, okay, I just won't crown while you're sitting on tunic counter. Right? Like I don't, if you didn't have to, just the fact that you got to pay for it, it's kind of rough. But it would be broken if you didn't have to pay for it. So I understand why they did it.
All right.
Finally, Alex chose Amnesia. This is a card. So just so you guys are clear on the mechanics, whenever a card references itself, you can replace the name with this card. So this card is not great against anything except Katsu in general. But this is amazing. This is amazing against Katsu.
It's very good against Katsu.
But other than that,
an example of what Josh was just explaining was like the text on Teklo Plasma Pistol says, pay 1 to add a counter to Teklo Plasma Pistol or whatever. Amnesia does not remove the ability to do that. Because in the rules it says you can basically just remove that and say put it on this card, which does not involve a name, which Amnesia does not affect. But it does say combo card, you know, whatever, and then you have to select a card and then go search for it.
Yep. So I mean, this is a, if an illusionist and Katsu become problematic at the same time. This is kind of a two birds, one stone type of thing. Um, Sideboard card at best, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Uh,
agreed.
all right. So I think that kind of wraps it up. So far, do we see the generics as being impactful?
Less than I thought they were gonna be,
Well, that middle one's gonna break the game, but yeah, other than that,
aside from that one.
All right. Well,
I mean, premeditate is like exactly what Azalea needed.
mhm.
Mm.
Really any ranger, to be honest with you. Even
Oh yeah, Lexi probably loves that.
Lexi can play that. I mean, just like I said, it's a ranger card. Any of the rangers love that card and will always play 3 until the end of time. Which for them, since they'll never LL, is forever. So no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's a great card for ranger. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let's push forward to our finale. So I asked everybody to submit to me the most impactful / best card of the set. So let's take a look at that. As you can see, we have a few people that took liberties when I said submit a card.
Yeah.
Seb and Alex
tokens.
submitted the tokens. All right, so I think I've talked a lot about Cyclone Roundhouse already, but I'll give a brief summary. This card allows you to create very, very difficult to defend attack patterns with Ketsu. Just the fact that this exists means that good players are going to have to play around the existence of this. This also makes, because spinning wheel kick has combo, any combo starter can combine with Cyclone Roundhouse into a new combo line, basically. So you can go head jab, it hit, spinning wheel kick, Cyclone Roundhouse. Obviously, the only downside is it costs 2, but I think on a large turn, you're basically guaranteed to get a good chunk of damage through, or you're going to banish a card, or you're going to get to draw a card. I think a 5-card Ketsu hand is basically going to be impossible to stop from a competent player.
For peace of mind, have you ever played Oldham and looked at your hand and said, I wish this blue card blocked for 5? Well, I have a card for you. Because that's literally what it does. If you break down the math, it turns a blue into block 5.
Ponder's really good there too.
That's what I'm saying.
To hold that last card.
The math behind it is the ponder replaces peace of mind. So just count that as equal, right? You draw a card, you play this card equal. 2 resources, 1 for Crown of Siege. You block 4 + 1. That's 5 damage on 1 blue card. That is insane.
Just the fact that it's so backbreaking.
It goes around
card
dominate,
out of his hand, and then he just gets it back anyways.
Yeah, it's like it plays around dominate, reactions. You can do it on a damn CNC. I mean, first ban card. Either that or Crown's got to go. Easy, but it's completely fair if you just separate the 2 cards. Like they're just super fair. They just should not be able to interact with each other. It's a stupid interaction.
Okay.
Premeditate for me. Oh, so going back to Cyclone Roundhouse, I like Josh said, just the fact that this card exists is going to make certain Guardians look at Rampart and be like, maybe I just bring in a 2-handed hammer instead. I don't even bring in the shield.
Yep.
But premeditate, I just love it for Rangers. Like Nathan was saying, Lexi and Azalea really get to look at this card and enjoy the heck out of it. I think that there's a chance that other heroes might get some mileage out of it too. I don't know. I just love the card. Wish it blocked for 3, but that's about it.
So as for Seb and Alex, like I said, Seb has been very, very high on the whole inertia token. He thinks that this is a great strategic addition to the game, being able to manipulate how your opponent, their flow of battle operates is going to be something that is influential. As for Alex, he picked Bloodrock's box because this just is the most direct way to add damage to things. And if certain effects hit and then you get a Blood Rocks Pox, that often pushes the value up above what we consider to be the most valuable interactions of the game, because we're starting to get into the range of 2 for 8, 2 for 9, whereas in the past we would say 2 for 6, 2 for 7, 2 for 8,
or 1 for 5.
Yep,
That's it.
exactly. Yep, 1 for 6, etc. All right. Okay. So that, I guess, we'll round it out. All right. Before we go, you guys have any final thoughts on the Outsider set for CC?
I just can't wait to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I'm gonna caveat what we said earlier. We said, me and Josh at least said that we didn't think that it would play a heavy role into CC, and I'll be the first one to say it. That's not a bad thing, right? We're getting to a point in the game where all the Tales of Aria, let's not lie to ourselves, kind of Tales of Aria and Monarch kind of set the tone as far as power level, and you can see LSS is trying to like taper that back just a little bit, and I think that's great, because as soon as those heroes move on,
they are not as powerful because they don't have talents,
right? And and honestly, I think this is pure speculation. I have no clue, but maybe they saw the power spike in the dual talent, like all that whole situation. So they went ahead and moved to this set in Dynasty as we need some time to figure that out, so we don't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way they'll revisit it in Dusk Till Dawn, because that Dusk Till Dawn is going to be the real test on whether they can like truly balance a set, because, well, not only a set, but a card pull from a hero that was previously just broken, right, and overpowered. So if they can take a hero with those cards and make it balanced, that's like the greatest achievement ever. And I think that'll be the big test. But I think Outsiders did exactly what it needed to do. It took some neglected heroes for a long time, brought them up instead of taking people down or just like throwing a new one in there that's just stupid, like Starvo or anything like that. I mean, I think this has the potential to be the best limited set. It might not be WTR, but I can promise you it'll be number 2 at least.
Heck yeah. I hope so.
Yep. Speaking of limited, we should have some content related to limited coming out very soon as well. Yeah, I generally agree with both of you on this. This set seems like it's going to shake up things just enough that there's some question marks, and there's some potential for some clever deck building or some dark horse decks, and it's just going to create a situation where you need to test against a few more things, make sure you're a little bit more bulletproof, and yeah, I think it'll be a pretty good set, especially in limited, going forward.
Yep.
All right. I think that's gonna wrap us up here. We've been going for a little bit over an hour. All right. So we just want to thank you guys for watching. If you guys are still watching, thank you so much. Like I said at the very beginning, we have a few sponsors: Fabric, Dragon Shield, Card Culture. Check them out. We also have a Patreon and a Discord. If you guys want to check those out, the links are in the description. All right. Until next time, we're out. See ya.
Take care, everybody.